Thank you to those who commented Hank and Danny in the previous Vancouver Canucks video, but today we're going over the Canucks and another one of these topics, and it's like, this is what I mean when I say I'm a Canucks fan. People tell me, oh, it kind of feels like the Habs are pulling you away, Lego, they're stealing you from these Canucks people, and don't worry, Al in particular, I know you say that once in a while, still love you, buddy. When it comes to the Vancouver Canucks, I'm just so in deep with this franchise that the normie topics, the wave, it doesn't exist for Vancouver right now, because a lot of Canucks fans are in this state of excitement and anticipation, not at what we're seeing, but what we're going to see. For Montreal, it's easier to make videos about what's going on because there's a wave right now of content and ideas and topics that people are feeding into. For Canucks, it's not like that. We have to wait a little bit. We have to dig. The topics we talk about with Vancouver are deeper than those with the Montreal thing, because when it comes to Vancouver Canucks hockey, boy, there's a lot to uncover behind the surface. So when it comes to the biggest thing that people are talking about with Vancouver Canucks Nation right now, and I'm not talking about Sam Reinhart or Dougie Hamilton or Seth Jones or anything like that, I'm talking about Vancouver Canucks stuff. Legitimate stuff with players that are already on the team. Hey, the biggest thing we're going over, Elias Pettersson, Quinn Hughes, contracts. These two guys both signed their NHL contracts starting off in the 2018-19 season. Elias Pettersson signed his contract to start playing at the beginning of the year. Quinn Hughes signed his contract to start playing at the end of the year. Technically, they played in the same rookie year, but because Quinn Hughes didn't play a certain amount of games, he was qualified to having his rookie year actually start the next season, which is why he was in the Calder contention for the 2020 version of the award. It also is the reason why Quinn Hughes is not eligible to be offer sheeted, but Elias Pettersson is. And when it comes to both of these guys and the fact that they signed their contracts at the same time, technically the same year, burning off the same amount of time on their ELCs, now we're in a position where a few years down the road they both need extensions. Pettersson is the top Canucks center. Quinn Hughes is the best Canucks defenseman. You have yourselves a scenario where these are probably the most important contract signings you're going to have to do in the next few years, which is why, Jim Benning, you better not screw this up. So, if you go over what exactly is so funny about this entire situation, let's go over onto Donnie and Dhali and talk about the Vancouver Canucks and their contract negotiation process. Because what they did was they took on J.P. Barry. He's the guy who represents Quinn Hughes and a number of other NHL talents. And starting in January of this year, hey, he represents Elias Pettersson now too. So you have one of the guys who has made himself a reputation of being this big, top-of-the-line agent in the NHL, representing the two best players on the Canucks right now in a contract negotiation process that takes place simultaneously in the same offseason. Should be fairly straightforward, right? Well, that's kind of what's going on. J.P. Barry was brought on to Donnie and Dhali on Czech TV to talk about the contract negotiation process. He said this about Pettersson and Hughes. We are exploring a shorter term for Elias Pettersson, 5 years and below. For Quinn, we're going a little bit longer. And I know, if you're a franchise mode guy, if you're an NHL, EA Sports, be a GM guy, you're taking a look at this and you're saying, okay, what, 5 years or shorter for Pettersson? No, that's not how you do it. You go out there and you sign the players that you want to stick around for a long time to long-term contracts. Sure, you give up a little bit more money up front, but if your guy becomes really good, which you're expecting out of Elias Pettersson and Quinn Hughes, by the time they're 23, 24, 25 years old, this contract should be a steal. Look at Nathan MacKinnon, the guy's making $6.3 million, and he's one of the best players in the league. Look at Leon Draisaitl. He won the Hart and the Art Ross last year, $8.5 million. He's got himself a contract that is so good because they believed in him so much that they gave him the money up front. Now he's making the same amount of money despite being worth probably a lot more. Well, there's a difference here because firstly, the flat cap is a thing. The economic environment of the NHL certainly isn't the same like we had when the MacKinnon and the Draisaitl contracts were signed. And furthermore, there's something else really holding the Vancouver Canucks back from going long and signing 8-year contracts with Pettersson and Hughes. It's highlighted in the next quote over here from J.P. Barry. The Vancouver Canucks have cap issues. I don't think we can do long-term deals for Petey and Quinn. We have started the dance. We are engaged in talks. And this specific comment right here was kind of echoed by Elliot Friedman because he also made an appearance on Donnie and Dhali. We all think that a Pettersson deal will get done around a 3-year term. Friedman says that when it comes to Petey, you could be looking at 3 years. They're grinding away lots of optimism. On Hughes, it is more of a challenge, but it's not the same term as Pettersson. A lot of people were quick to point out when it comes to the fact that the Vancouver Canucks even have cap issues, which is what's holding JP Barry, the agent, back from getting longer-term deals done for Petey and Hughes. The entire reason that the Canucks even have cap issues in the first place, yes, it's Jim Benning going out there spending money on guys that probably are on this roster for a lot more than they're actually worth, but a good chunk of these guys are actually represented by JP Barry himself. I noted this at the beginning, but Barry represents a lot of NHL talent, and among those included are Tyler Myers and Louis Eriksson. These two guys are making $6 million AAV per season, and JP Barry was the guy who helped out in those contract negotiations. So now, a little bit down the line, after doing the Myers deal, after doing the Eriksson deal, he comes out and he's like, yeah, the Vancouver Canucks have cap issues, and, it's partly my fault. He's not saying that directly right here, but man, he kind of is part of the reason why. And I get it, he's going out there trying to get as much money as he can for his clients, and it's exactly what happened. Louis Eriksson got $6 million, Tyler Myers got $6 million. But those kinds of contracts were a little bit longer than what this projection is here for Quinn Hughes and Elias Pettersson. This is what Thomas Strand said, talking about what was said on The Athletic. If the Vancouver Canucks have any intention of being competitive next season, and they do, it will have to come at the expense of seriously considering long-term deals. Which honestly, in theory, it doesn't sound like the best idea because you want to have those McKinnons and those Draisaitl contracts, the guys who are playing so much bigger than their contracts really are. But the landscape of the RFA contract in this day and age just isn't really in that territory anymore. Here's Jeff Fayette, who responded to the JP Barry quote, "So the Canucks are going to have to bridge Petey and Hughes while the team is in repair mode, and then have to pay them to their absolute max when it's hopefully time to contend. Way to go, Jim." And the implication here is that, the Canucks are so bad because they're going to go out there and shell out smaller amounts of money today, which is going to lead to problems down the line when the Canucks are in their primes, and you need to give them more money because they're going to be worth more. The counter-argument to this, though, is kind of in the pudding. Barzal got a 3-year RFA contract. McAvoy, 3 years. Kucherov, 4 years. Hedman, Stamkos, all these other guys got 5 years, which are not the long-term year contracts that, let's say, Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews were able to get. People were using Marner and Matthews as comparables for a long time because, these guys got a whole bunch of money and they're young and this and that. But look at how the Toronto model favors Toronto. Now you have a team that has $40 million tied up into 4 guys, and what? You're screwed. You can't afford to keep $3.5 million Kerfoot. You can't afford to keep anybody who is making over $1 million because you're so tight in a cap world that's not going up, and when you're equipped with these ridiculously expensive contracts in Marner and Matthews. Rick Dhaliwal even said that the Vancouver Canucks feel that Matthew Barzal is the comparable for Elias Pettersson, and Barzal got a 3-year, $7 million AAV contract starting this season. If the Vancouver Canucks are going to go out there and give Pettersson $7-ish million for the next 3 years, that is what it is. I mean, it happened with Barzal. That was in January. Take a look at where exactly the comparables lie. I mean, Barzal, if he is the ceiling, Pettersson has already bursted through that ceiling. He's produced more and he's younger. The only difference is, the injuries. Pettersson hasn't been in the league for nearly the same amount of games as Barzal has because he has been taken out so frequently. Is that a negative factor when it comes to contract negotiations? Absolutely. But does it mean the Vancouver Canucks are still ultimately doomed because, they have an opportunity to lessen the amount of money that Pettersson can get quickly? Go out there, give him 8 years, $8 million, let's get it done. But then it's like, we can't get it done because of the contracts that I also signed with Myers and Eriksson with this general manager. Yeah, it's kind of funny what goes around comes around, eh? I'm just really interested in seeing what Quinn Hughes gets ultimately, because that guy, I mean, apparently, according to the hearsay, it might not be as expensive as Pettersson, which I think is really justified because Quinn Hughes took quite a step back this season in terms of his defensive play. He still produced points, don't get me wrong, but we know the best is yet to come for Quinn Hughes. It's just, if they're going to go out there and say that the Pettersson future is a lot more guaranteed than the Quinn Hughes future, and thus Pettersson should be more expensive, I'm good with giving Quinn Hughes a longer-term deal for a smaller amount of money than maybe would have been exemplified for Pettersson. But that's just kind of my opinion about it here. I'm really interested, honestly, in seeing how the future of RFA contracts go along. If we see more deals made like the Matthewses and the Marners, where they're getting so much money for bridge deals, essentially, because all the other RFAs of note have been shorter-term deals. It's been a lot of bridging going on in the NHL, not just in Vancouver, and we haven't even talked about the entire offer sheet angle yet. Oh boy. Because the Elias Pettersson offer sheet is a topic for another day, comment in the comment section below if you made it to the end of this video, Sebastian Aho, for a chance to be featured in the next Vancouver Canucks related video. Obviously Aho, because he was the last offer sheet that actually signed. I hope you enjoyed this video. Talk to me in the comments what you think about Pettersson, Hughes, the contracts, JP Barry, Myers and Eriksson, and the contracts and all that. It's all big stuff. So that's Rolls 99. And bye.